Okay, think about this for a second. What if everything you've sort of believed about yourself, maybe your deepest truths, has actually been based on misinformation?
Hmm.
And what if the very things you get criticized for, feeling like you're too much or maybe an outsider, what if those are actually the building blocks of your excellence?
It's a pretty radical idea, isn't it? But it really challenges us to look beyond, well, the usual ways of thinking.
Yeah.
So many adults who are genuinely gifted struggle, and it's often because they just don't recognize these core traits in themselves.
And that's exactly what we're digging into today. We're doing a deep dive into this idea of the everyday genius. We want to unpack what it really means to be gifted as an adult, getting past those old-fashioned ideas about, fame and fortune.
Right.
Our mission here is to help you recognize and hopefully harness your own unique potential, turning those things you thought were flaws into, well, powerful assets.
And for this deep dive, we're leaning on this really fascinating guide. It offers a pretty revolutionary way of looking at adult giftedness.
Okay.
Yeah, it really challenges the conventional wisdom and gives some profound insights into the inner world of this everyday genius.
Okay, let's unpack that term gifted because, when you hear it, what pops into your head? For a lot of people, it's like those super brilliant Einsteins, right? Or maybe someone like Anne from the guide, this legal powerhouse who dismantled a government case before she was even 35, just seemed destined for greatness.
Yeah, the obvious ones.
Exactly. Even straight A students or people who are clearly successful might sort of push back against the term gifted. But that's not the whole story, is it?
No, not at all. We're talking about these everyday geniuses. These are, ordinary people in many ways, but they have this unusual vision. They're the ones pushing progress forward. History is just full of high achievers who serve some kind of awe-inspiring purpose, showing us how high the bar can actually go. The key thing here is that giftedness isn't just about, like, a crazy high IQ or getting lots of awards. It's more about a unique way of processing the world that fuels progress in all sorts of ways, often ways that don't get noticed.
It really makes me think of that ugly duckling story.
Yeah. Good analogy.
This swan raised by ducks thinks it's just weird and wrong, suffering because it doesn't get its true nature.
Exactly.
And it's almost unbelievable to think there could be millions, literally millions, of unidentified, gifted adults out there, just like that swan.
Right. And they suffer needlessly. Low confidence, self-criticism, they're not happy in their careers, relationship problems, all because they have no clue who they really are or why they feel so different.
So why is it so hard to identify them?
Well, there are a few big reasons. First, most gifted adults were never really assessed for it, formally or informally. And giftedness itself, it's not black and white. It's a spectrum, Mild to profound, maybe you're gifted across the board, or maybe just in one specific area. Kind of like musical talent. Some people are tone deaf, others are virtuosos.
Right. So if you're not, hitting those obvious external benchmarks.
Exactly. It's easy to miss. Plus, the word gifted, it carries a lot of baggage, right? Stereotypes, some good, but plenty of negative ones too. And if your gifts aren't being used or nobody recognizes them, you might just think, oh, I'm nothing special.
Yeah, I can see that. And the adult world, it seems to have such a narrow definition sometimes. Like gifted equals wealth, fame, big influence. What does that miss?
It misses so much.
Yeah.
So many genuinely gifted people whose impact is huge, but maybe not, headline news.
Like Felicia.
Exactly, like Felicia. Her bakery wasn't just a place to get bread. It was this hub of belonging, of enthusiasm. She made a massive difference in her community, even if she wasn't famous.
Yeah.
Or think about the thousands of researchers plugging away trying to find cures for things like AIDS and Alzheimer's. They are absolute evolutionaries, even if they haven't gotten public recognition yet. Their genius is in that dedication, that vision, not just how visible they are.
That makes the author's own aha moment so striking. When her advisor just casually says, of course you're drawn to gifted people because you are one.
Yeah.
For someone listening, why is that kind of realization so... Well, the author called it soaring liberation. Why is it so powerful?
It's that sudden click, right? That moment of deep self-recognition where suddenly decades of feeling different just make sense. It really shows how understanding these core truths about yourself can just transform everything. You shift from seeing yourself as somehow flawed to understanding you're just fundamentally wired differently.
And these fundamental characteristics, these are what the guide calls first nature traits.
Exactly. They're innate, part of your core personality shaping your development, kind of like being right-handed or left-handed.
Yep.
You don't think about it much, but it deeply affects how you interact with the world.
But then society often steps in, doesn't it? And pressures gifted adults to conform, like forcing that left-hander to use their right hand.
Precisely. You get well-meaning teachers, family members telling you to hold back, fit in, don't make waves.
What's the cost of doing that, of holding back?
The real cost is you start believing you are what people criticize you for. You think, okay, I guess I am overly sensitive or compulsively perfectionistic or blindly driven.
When
really the truth is, as the source puts it, gifted individuals cannot escape the fact that they will always be quantitatively, qualitatively, motivationally different from most other people.
Wow.
And those very differences, the ones people criticize, they're actually the fundamental building blocks of excellence and advanced development. It's about seeing these innate patterns as your blueprint for potential, not some kind of defect.
Let's really peel back the layers. How do these differences actually show up? Our guide groups them into three kind of intertwined traits: intensity, complexity, and drive. ICD. Let's start with intensity. What's this quiveringly alive experience about?
Yeah, intensity. It's about being, quiveringly alive, feeling everything really deeply, profoundly.
How does that look day to day?
It can show up as high energy levels, really deep emotional reactions, maybe impulsivity, talking fast, even nervous habits. Gifted folks often notice small discomforts others ignore, and they react really strongly to problems or how other people are feeling. The key insight here is this isn't just being dramatic or overly sensitive. It's actually the raw fuel, often misunderstood, but it's the fuel for profound insight and deep wisdom. This intensity lets an everyday genius connect dots and feel the impact of things ways others might just skim over.
That's a huge reframe. Because, we hear about Elsa, who learned to just intellectualize her feelings to cope. But you're saying these intense characteristics, the ones often labeled overblown or even unacceptable, are actually crucial for developing insight, wisdom.
Absolutely crucial. Think about Sandra. Her strong sense of justice wasn't just an idea, she felt it. She was crushed when kids mocked a boy with leg braces. Later, she was irate when passed over for a promotion she clearly deserved. Those intense feelings were tied directly to her moral convictions. Or Kimberly, whose mind is like a hungry beast, if she doesn't feed it puzzles and possibilities, it just defaults to worry land.
Wow.
She literally felt like she'd be locked up in a psych ward if she let her full intensity out. And experts like Emery Roper connect this strong moral conviction in gifted people to being global thinkers, capable of really careful big picture solutions.
So it's not a bug, it's a feature, a core part of how an everyday genius operates, essential for deep understanding.
Exactly.
But if you're living life at that level of intensity, what's the main challenge? What do you need to watch out for?
The big challenge is needing to consciously manage it, direct that intensity. Otherwise, you risk burning yourself out and, frankly, wearing out the people around you, too. It's a powerful engine, like you said, but it definitely needs a skill driver.
Makes sense. Okay, next up, complexity. How does the genius mind actually work differently? Why this preference for, making things complicated or seeing the complication?
Yeah, it's not that they like making things difficult, it's how their minds operate. Studies show gifted individuals process information more efficiently. They actually use less energy for high performance.
Really? Less energy?
Yeah, they recall more details, they're more aware of their own thinking process, highly mindful. They identify the core of a task quickly, filter out irrelevant stuff, and just master new skills faster. Think of it like their mental librarian isn't just organized. It's like this super fast AI that instantly sees multiple ways to categorize information and is constantly looking for new creative connections.
Wow.
That's what lets them spot patterns and links that other people might miss entirely. So they genuinely prefer tackling demanding problems. And they're comfortable with ambiguity.
That sounds like a superpower. I'm thinking of John, you mentioned him earlier. His mind seems slow to others, but he's tracking conversations, reading reports, and chiming in perfectly because he's processing so much so fast.
Exactly. Or Jordan, whose sharp observations came with this sort of second sight for what was likely to happen next, he got energized by problems that seemed completely unsolvable to others.
So what's the hidden strength there? beyond just being smart.
The hidden strength is that capacity for really intricate strategies and flexible thinking. That's core to creativity. You see it in top mathematicians, for example.
But there's a downside.
Oh yeah, there's a shadow side. You could become a victim of your own enthusiasm, maybe dismiss others' ideas too quickly or get rigid in your thinking.
Like Tana.
Right? Like Tana. She got so good at systems that she became kind of a little dictator, struggling to accept that other people could reach the same goal using a different path. The trick is balancing that incredible efficiency with openness to other ways.
Okay. Intensity, complexity, and the third one is drive. What's the heart of this trait? The sort of unstoppable urge to perfect things?
Drive. It's described as this innate urge to perfect. It's a first nature thing tied deeply to problem solving, this compulsion to seek, know, and create. It's like an interpersonal duty pushing them to act, often in service of something bigger than themselves. And creative work, the source makes clear, isn't glamorous. It's relentless, dirty hands effort.
Yeah.
Because when excellence is the goal, nothing less really satisfies that drive. The insight here is that this isn't just, ambition in the usual sense. It's a deep, built-in need to push boundaries and hit a high standard, guided by some internal compass.
That sounds intense, again, almost exhausting, but also really compelling. I bet a lot of listeners can relate to that feeling Nadine described, that perseverance isn't a choice, it's a way of life.
Exactly.
She felt good as long as she could see herself clicking off the yardage towards her goals. Or you think of Barbara Streisand with The Prince of Tides. People criticized her for being meticulous, but that fortitude and insistence on perfecting details was key to its success.
Right.
Then there's Paul, whose drive was tangled up with seeking approval, meaning he felt he could never slow down. It can manifest differently.
It can. And that brings us to the line between that powerful, positive drive to perfect and getting trapped by something less productive, like just pure perfectionism.
That's a crucial distinction, isn't it? Because there is a high cost to exceptional ability. That perseverance feels non-negotiable, like you said, a way of life. But it can absolutely lead to burnout or feeling like a martyr.
Definitely. So you have to differentiate that positive drive to perfect from the kind of perfectionism that just drains your energy and gets you stuck.
So how do you tell the difference? How do you manage that? The guide gives those 3 big picture questions, right?
Yeah, they're really helpful. First, what is the overall goal? Big picture. Second, to what degree will more preparation or fine-tuning actually help me meet the desired deadline? Be honest.
Okay.
And third, how much would I bet, really bet, that doing more at this stage will strikingly improve the outcome?
Ah, I like that. Puts it in perspective.
Exactly. They help you check if your drive is still serving the goal or if it's just become this endless loop of diminishing returns. Keeps it productive, not self-defeating.
Okay. Which leads us neatly into a really critical idea, the false self. Our source talks about how really early in life, those unique, eye-catching traits of an everyday genius can trigger disapproval from others.
Right.
And the psyche, to protect itself, does one of 2 things. Either it magnifies the trait and exaggerates a reaction, or it tries to hide it, a collapsed reaction. What does that actually look like, and what's the impact?
It's a deep defense mechanism. So the exaggerated false self might look like Felicia, who became overly responsible, always putting everyone else first, neglecting her own potential. Or Sandra, whose truth-telling was vital, but when it came out defensively, it just backfired.
Okay.
Then you have the collapsed false self. That can lead to crippling self-doubt. Like Maureen, brilliant, but felt inferior without that advanced degree.
Right.
Or Miles, who completely hid his creative side to avoid being exploited, basically becoming a cynic, a non-believer. Annette felt she had to tie her gifts down to fit her mother's idea of security, becoming like an automaton, just anxious and tired all the time.
Wow. And Lionel, a class clown.
Yeah, Lionel kept his serious, thoughtful side totally hidden because his friends got uncomfortable when he wasn't playing the Joker role they expected.
And the consequences of living behind this false self are huge, aren't they? Neglecting your true self, feeling lost, anxious, fatigued, even deeply depressed like Carl.
Absolutely. It shows up as defensiveness, maybe isolating yourself, silent contempt, or just intellectualizing feelings. Anything to avoid being truly seen.
And often it takes a crisis, right? An everyday genius identity crisis may be triggered by job loss, like buyer inexperience with downsizing, or some personal loss, often around midlife.
Exactly. That crisis point, as painful as it is, becomes this crucial opportunity, a chance to finally confront that false self and start the journey towards liberation. It's like a forced reckoning that can actually be a powerful catalyst for change.
So that journey to liberation starts by facing the disapproval that created the false self in the first place, moving, as the guide says, from silent to shielded to strong.
Yes.
Gifted adults hear certain criticisms over and over, the ones that build that false self. Things like, why don't you slow down? Or you worry about everything. Even, who do you think you are? How do we start to reframe those, turn them from criticisms into strengths?
Those 10 criticisms, they land hard, but yes, they can absolutely be reframed. So when someone says, why don't you slow down? A new response could be, actually, going fast is normal for me.
Okay.
It acknowledges your efficient thinking, your intuition that lets you grasp core problems quickly. It's not a flaw, it's just how your brain is wired.
I like that. And if you hear, you worry about everything.
You could own it.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm a person of deep concern and moral conviction. Frame it positively. It connects back to that global thinking, understanding complexity we talked about. It's not worry for worry's sake.
Right, and you're so sensitive and dramatic.
Reclaim it. That depth of emotion is central to passion, to driving change. You learn to balance the sensitivity with some selective detachment, like Elsa eventually managed. But the depth itself is a strength.
What about you have to do everything the hard way?
Embrace your tolerance for intricacy. See it as a strength for tackling complex problems. It's not the hard way, it's your way. Ensuring thoroughness, maybe finding innovative solutions others miss.
And can't you ever be satisfied? That connects back to drive, right?
Exactly. It relates to that natural drive to perfect, which again can be managed with smart decision-making, learning when good enough really is good enough for the goal.
But even with all this reframing, there's often this burdensome load of guilt that gifted adults carry, that feeling of being guilty if I go my own way and guilty if I don't. Where does that come from? And how do you let it go?
It often comes from absorbing those societal messages that equate standing out, being different, or achieving something significant with being somehow elitist or selfish. Peter felt that struggle deeply, even with all his success. The guilt comes from internalizing that message.
Yeah.
Being individual is wrong. Releasing it means truly understanding that your unique way of being isn't a burden on others, it's actually a gift.
Which brings us to the idea of risk. Self-liberation involves taking risks, doesn't it? Especially when there isn't always a clear, safe space for gifted adults.
Yes, definitely.
I think of Warren, fearless mountain climber, but totally apprehensive about risking his creative dreams.
Right.
And the paradox is that the source says the real risk is often just extended waiting, doing nothing, ending up with regret later. That's powerful.
It's so true. The perceived risk of action is often way less than the actual slow burn risk of inaction.
Okay, so moving from liberating the self to finding purpose. The guide introduces this concept of evolutionary intelligence, IVI. It sounds like taking those extraordinary abilities and focusing them through. What are the components? Humanistic vision, mandated mission, and revolutionary action.
That's right. EVI is about purposeful application. So first, humanistic vision, HV. That's having an image of a better future, one that's not just technologically advanced, but also humanely civilized. Like Brenda, whose thinking always aimed for a more humane world.
Okay, vision.
Second, mandated mission. This is that inner drive, that force pushing you towards meaning, excellence, fulfillment. It feels like a personal duty, compelling you to act, often in service of humanity. Like Mitch's incredible work with those Asian teens in Milwaukee, it felt like something he had to do.
Got it. Mission.
And third, revolutionary action, RA. This is the leap, the dream made real, taking action that goes beyond what's currently accepted. Think Alexander Graham Bell's telephone, a huge leap.
Yeah.
Or Chien-Shiung Wu's experiments that totally changed particle physics.
Right.
But it also includes those currently unrecognized efforts, like the AIDS researchers we mentioned. Their persistent action is revolutionary, even if the breakthrough hasn't happened yet.
So the formula for EVI, it combines multiple intelligences, those gifted traits, ICD, with HV, MM, and RA. And the crucial point is, a 0 in any one element can cancel the whole thing out.
Exactly. It suggests this intelligence isn't just for personal gain or ease. It comes with responsibility, a price tag, and a prize, as the source says. It demands integration of all these parts.
And what's really interesting is that EVI isn't just for, the Bill Gateses of the world, the obvious rocket scientists or brilliant sensations.
Not at all. It's found in those everyday people of unusual vision who give progress a forward push. It's about the positive impact you create, much more than the public spotlight you might or might not stand in.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about relationships. This seems to be a common struggle for gifted individuals. Given their intensity, maybe being seen as too much, or that impatience with others' pace, what are the unique hurdles here?
Yeah, the challenges often stem directly from those core traits, like Jack snapping his fingers in class to hurry people up that impatience really shows,
Mm-hmm.
or finding teamwork genuinely difficult because past experiences involved others bogging things down.
Yep.
And then there's that partner with the potential trap you mentioned.
Ah, yes. Explain that again.
It's where you fall for an imagined ideal of who the person could be rather than who they are right now. Then you get disappointed, maybe even resentful, when they don't magically transform into that potential you saw.
Oof. Yeah, berating them for not following a script you wrote in your head.
Exactly. And then beating yourself up because you couldn't somehow manipulate the relationship into being perfect.
So how do we avoid that trap? How do we build stronger connections? The guide mentions two key skills: respectful listening and effective assertiveness. What do those look like in practice?
Respectful listening is truly active listening. Not interrupting to finish their sentence, not changing the subject, not correcting their grammar while they're talking.
Right.
It's really trying to grasp their point of view, even if you don't agree with it, without giving up your own. And effective assertiveness is about being clear and direct, often in just one sentence, using a neutral tone, avoiding that long over-explanation that can sometimes come across as defensive or, frankly, like whining.
Okay, clear and concise.
Yes, state your need or thought calmly and directly.
And for real intimacy, the source emphasizes needing plenty of elbow room for individuality, cherishing uniqueness, not just tolerating it.
Absolutely. It's about honoring those unique qualities in each other. Cultivating shared experiences, yes, but also making space for, as the guide says, surprise, silliness, secret communications, permission to be alone, and enjoyable conversation about nothing.
That sounds like a really healthy balance. Requires both people to be on board, though.
It really does. It means understanding and celebrating what makes the other person tick, not trying to reshape them. And for teamwork, it's about linking your individuality with collaboration. Jack, the finger snapper, he eventually realized that trying to do everything yourself is not only time-consuming, it can be unnecessary and occasionally arrogant. He learned to sometimes lead by following the inspirations of others, recognizing that different perspectives actually lead to better results.
Accepting others' pace, recognizing diversity offers the advantage of a broader perspective. It all points towards needing strategies for a more balanced life, right?
Definitely.
So now that we get these traits and challenges, what are some practical, actionable things people can do to master intensity, complexity, drive, and find that balance?
Okay, for mastering intensity, you need to learn to consciously gatekeep it. Since you feel things so deeply, finding your tribe like-minded people who get it is crucial. Places where you don't have to constantly dial yourself down.
Right.
And a big one. Learn the difference between genuinely caring about others and becoming an overwrought caretaker, fixing everyone's problems. That's a huge energy drain. And just accepting, truly accepting, that going fast is normal for me can be incredibly freeing.
Okay. What about mastering complexity?
Remember that emotional well-being is tied to your thoughts. Practice things like thought stopping or thought transfer when you feel those hot thoughts starting to spiral into worry or negativity.
Okay, intercepting the spiral.
Exactly. Indulge your many interests, but also focus enough to become an expert in at least one area. Avoid being a dilettante lost in minutia. And learn to trust your intuition more. Embrace paradox. Channel that amazing mental power productively.
Makes sense. And mastering drive.
Set realistic goals. Really distinguish between your driving vision and that energy-sucking perfectionism we talked about. Monitor your natural sense of urgency. Does it really need to be done right now?
Good question.
Avoid those circular worry patterns. And, crucially, learn to finish what you start with. As much attention as when you began. Follow through. That initial burst needs staying power.
Follow through. Okay. And beyond ICD, there's that critical piece about accepting risk. You know, progress leaps forward on the backs of extraordinary individuals who put themselves on the line.
Right.
But the idea that greater reward always means greater risk isn't necessarily true.
No, the source argues you can manage risk intelligently with good preparation, practice, patience. And again, remember that often the real risk is just extended waiting, leading to future regret. Not taking the chance might be the biggest gamble.
That's a huge perspective shift.
It really is. And some other practical wisdom bits. Link your individuality with collaboration. Reward yourself for getting through boring but necessary tasks. Creativity often needs that drudgery. Adopt an action bias. Do it, fix it, try it, move forward. And keep practicing that line between caring about others and being an overwrought caretaker. These aren't just nice ideas, they're vital habits for living well as a gifted person.
Okay, This brings us to the final major concept, evolutionary moments. These key turning points often only clear looking back. They can be huge, shocking, and monumental events like FDR's polio, which dramatically reshaped his path.
Exactly. Or they can be much more subtle, a string of events that are timely and commanding, but maybe not obvious at the time. Eleanor Roosevelt's life is a great example of that continuous evolution, not one single bang.
Right. Her humility, her dedication to service, it all integrated her abilities over time, constantly pushing her to learn and grow.
It's a powerful model of lifelong development.
Think about Alexander Graham Bell, too. It wasn't just inventing the telephone. It was that later legal victory that funded his philanthropy, his service to the deaf community, which was the legacy he wanted. That was a pivotal evolutionary moment.
Yeah, shifted his focus.
Or Akira Kurosawa. His painting career wasn't working out, and then, almost on a whim, he answers an ad for an assistant film director. That small choice became the absolute turning point for his legendary career.
Amazing. It often seems like a small thing at the time.
And Billy Kluver, the Bell Labs guy who loved art. His evolutionary moment came from collaborating with a sculptor, teaching him how to listen to an artist and when enough must be enough, key lessons learned through doing.
Right. And those MacArthur Fellows, the uncommon geniuses Denise Shakurjian wrote about their stories, show how creative achievement often leads to human dignity.
Yeah.
But through these winding, unexpected paths, full of these moments.
What really strikes me is the line, "No trumpet sound when the important decisions of our life are made."
So true. It's usually quiet, internal.
Yeah. It emphasizes all the unsung heroes making a difference and that every achievement is the result of many minutes, hours, and even years of labors. It's not usually overnight success.
Not at all. And the insight for listeners is that you might be in an evolutionary moment right now or experiencing a series of small shifts, and you won't even fully recognize it until later.
It encourages you to pay attention, doesn't it? To look back, but also notice the subtle currents happening now.
Definitely. Be aware of those potential turning points.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive. We've journeyed through understanding these core traits, intensity, complexity, and drive, and how reframing them can turn perceived flaws into real strengths.
Yeah.
We've looked at how the false self can hold you back and how recognizing these evolutionary moments, big or small, can help guide your path forward. It's really a journey of self-discovery, challenging those standard ideas of success.
And hopefully offering a truly liberating new way to understand yourself.
So here's a final thought for you to take away. You are not defined by what other people think or by those conventional yardsticks of success. Your real power. It lies in embracing your inherent differences. Recognizing that, as the source says, resisting your gifts is a choice to ignore the true power of your abilities.
Powerful choice.
So the question is, what will you choose to do with this newfound understanding of your own everyday genius?